Chapter 236. Supreme Alliance's new team was formed. There were a total of 11 people. Chin Mo stood in the middle, the team members lined up in a row. Every one of them was in their uniform, looking indescribably handsome. That surging aura was just like the slam dunk that had swept the world of anime and manga back then. It swept over and ignited people's hearts. Such a scene was broadcasted on all major online platforms at the same time. Many fangirls couldn't help but want to play hero again after watching it. At this time, in the lounge of the business reception, Fu Zhongyi's arm was held by a well-maintained woman. She was wearing a woolen coat that cost tens of thousands of dollars. Her makeup was exquisite, and her other hand was holding a wine glass filled with red wine. She was smugly clinking glasses with the investor. "Director Lee, you really have a good eye for choosing our Fu's battle team." There wasn't a man who didn't like to be praised by a beauty, especially Mr. Lee. He laughed and waved his hand. "Speaking of foresight, Mr. Su's foresight is still the best. You've poached so many worthy members. After this selection contest, once the name of the Fu's battle team spreads, our good days will come. President Fu, I'm so envious that you have such a good wife." Fu Zhongyi glanced at Su Mei, who was standing beside him. His expression was one of superiority. CEO Lee was never stingy with his praises for his business partners. "And young master, you're really good at gaming. Honestly, there was a period of time where I really believed he Honghua, thinking that Spade was there. That was really hilarious." "I know, right?" Su Mei pretended to sigh regretfully. "It's really hard to say about big sister Honghua. Sometimes, I don't want to make things difficult for everyone. Zhongyi understands me, but she just can't get along with me." Fu Zhongyi sneered, "That shrew, why do you care about her?" "Actually, I don't care about my status." Su Mei looked at Fu Zhongyi, and her voice gradually became softer. Her eyes turned red. "But Ximing is so outstanding, and he has always been criticized by others since he was young. Just because he is 7 months behind Ximing, I really can't bear to." Hearing that, Fu Zhongyi's heart softened. He reached out and pulled his wife into his arms, gently patting her. "After this selection contest, let's see if He Honghua still has the capital to delay the divorce. You don't have to worry about the others. My Fu family only recognizes our Ximing family. As for the others, it's fine even if we don't want that kind of trash." Mr. Lee was not interested in listening to this kind of family infighting. He was a businessman, and what he cared most about was the interests of businessmen. Today is a good day. Don't mention unhappy things. The Qin group's competition should be over by now. President Lee said and smiled again. "President Fu, shall we go down now? I believe that many of our friends from the media are waiting to interview us, especially some advertisers. After watching this year's selection contest, they will definitely keep coming." Mr. Lee is right. Su Mei knew what kind of person she was. She definitely knew that in this circle, she had to take advantage of the situation. She said coquettishly, "Hubby, hurry up and smile. Think about how Ximing made us proud, so that we can accept the interview later." Chapter 237. In the center of the cocktail party, a red carpet was spread all over the floor, showing off the nobility. There were indeed many people there, all of whom were business celebrities in Jiang City. In the magnificently decorated hall, everyone was holding a glass of wine, talking about something with amazement on their faces, and the words "selection contest" could be vaguely heard. Su Mei walked down the spiral staircase holding Fu Zhongyi's arm. When she saw the scene, her thin lips curved into a smile. Her prediction was right. As long as he had the identity of Spade Z, her son would be famous. With this certainty, Su Mei walked down the stairs quite confidently. The waiters in suits were still busily shuttling among the crowd. When people saw Fu Zhongyi and Su Mei coming down, the voices of conversation stopped abruptly. After all, they were all people in the business world, and they had been here for a long time. Naturally, they wouldn't show their expressions, so they naturally changed the topic. However, their eyes would involuntarily look at Fu Zhongyi's side. Being stared at like that, Su Mei's attitude became even higher. She turned sideways to let the waiters pour her wine, and then she blended into the crowd. Boss Lee was also smiling happily, thinking that in less than a minute, someone would definitely come over to talk to them. The three of them looked at each other with confidence. Su Mei even pretended to raise her glass and take a sip of red wine, with a big smile on her face. Who knew? 1 minute passed. 2 minutes passed. 3 minutes passed, still no one came over. There were reporters taking pictures of them. But the feeling of taking pictures like that was very strange, not like a formal shooting. It was a little hard to describe. Usually, if someone came to interview them at this time, they wouldn't refuse. Why did they hide? Boss Lee frowned, feeling a little awkward, but he couldn't tell what it was. Things didn't develop for a long time, so Su Mei couldn't help but feel a little anxious. After all, the purpose of attending this cocktail party was to make friends with more advertisers tonight. It couldn't go on like this. Others didn't move, but Su Mei moved. She held her glass and came to the side of an investor who had been eyeing the esports project recently. Boss Liu, long time no see. That Boss Liu glanced at her and didn't say anything. Su Mei continued to smile. I wonder if you have watched this year's selection contest. I didn't look. Boss Liu's words were also very artistic. But after seeing the pictures and the moments, I plan to go home and watch the replay. I heard that there is a player called Spade Z who is not bad. When Fu Zhongyi and Su Mei heard him mention Spade Z, their smiles grew wider. Fu Zhongyi enunciated each word carefully. My son is untalented, but it is his good fortune to be able to catch Boss Liu's eye. Boss Liu took a sip of wine and didn't say anything, tacitly acknowledging his modesty. On the other hand, the people at the side quieted down when they heard the conversation. But at this moment, the reporters all raised their cameras, looking like they wanted to steal the limelight. Chapter 238. After saying this, Su Mei made a moved expression, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. What a good acting. Unexpectedly, Boss Liu raised his eyebrows. Who told you that Spade Z is your son, Fu Shiming? Ah. Su Mei was stunned by this rhetorical question. She stood there, not knowing what to do. Not only that, but her expression was also synchronized with the camera. Fu Zhongyi and Mr. Li were confused. If Spade Z wasn't Shiming, who else could it be? President Fu, although it's not convenient for me to say anything as an outsider, a man should be responsible. In today's society, which man doesn't have children outside? It's just that it's rare for the second son to ride on the eldest son's head. Mr. Liu's voice was very calm, and he was still holding a glass of wine in his hand. What everyone found strange was that, logically speaking, CEO Liu was a well-behaved CEO. He would definitely not say such things in such an occasion. Could it be that he was drunk? After all, Boss Lee was the middleman. He opened his mouth, wanting to speak up for Fu Zhongyi. Boss Liu, you don't understand. Boss Fu's eldest son is really unpresentable. He doesn't have anything he wants, and yet he acts all high and mighty. Rumor has it that he likes men. Isn't he a pervert? No matter how magnanimous President Fu was, he could not tolerate his son being like this. Can't take it out. Boss Liu didn't answer his question and just asked with a smile. At this time, the quick-witted Su Mei finally realized that something was wrong and was about to say something. But it was too late. At this point, Manager Li blurted out, yes. The useless Fujio you're talking about is Spade Z. Boss Lu put away the wine glass. Boss Fu, your two sons are indeed very different. The former is very skilled, while the latter only knows how to hack accounts. Fortunately, they are competing in the esports arena, not using tricks like a mistress. Boss Su, you two are really addicted to pretending to be others. Your son pretended to be others in the competition, and you still pretended to be others at the banquet. Boss Fu likes you, it really is a perfect match. All of a sudden, not only Su Mei, but even Fu Zhongyi's face froze. His cheeks turned white and then red. Only they knew how they felt. The surrounding people also laughed after hearing Mr. Lu's words. As for what everyone was laughing at, everyone knew very well in their hearts. Su Mei had never been so humiliated in all her years of life. She had graduated from a famous university and was also a radio host. She knew exactly how to control public opinion. So, even when she had snatched the man from He Honghua, no one had said a word about it. But today, she had slapped her own face. As for Fu Zhongyi, his mind was blank. Actually, he had no idea that Fu Ximing was impersonating Spade Z, which explained his reaction. What's more, what did Director Lu just say? That eldest son of his was Spade Z. As an investor who had taken drastic measures against He Honghua at the last minute, he was even more confused. Spade Z is He Honghua's son. How is this possible? Manager Li said anxiously. Manager Lu, is the information you got wrong? Chapter 239. Hearing that, Boss Li immediately took out his cell phone. Fu Zhongyi also went over there. The entire online platform was promoting the topic of Fujio. The young man had one hand in his pocket, standing in the Supreme Alliance. Not only was he not overwhelmed by the aura, but the image of him with a lollipop in his mouth gave a strong impact. The most valuable king of popularity. The first kill weapon with an incredible face. Spade Z. These were all titles given to Fujio by the Qin group. Every title was like a slap on Fu Zhongyi's face. In addition to the news of Fujio winning the championship, there was also a photo of the Fu family team being kicked out of the arena. And there was a bold sentence in pure black font, in the esports arena, there is no need for this kind of imposter. Su Mei also saw that photo. The scene where her son raised his hand to block the camera made her clench her teeth. How could this be? How could things turn out like this? She had obviously spent a lot of money to find a hacker to steal the ID of Spade Z from the internet. It should be Ximing's. And how could that barbaric village girl's useless son be the real Spade Z? There were too many questions, and Su Mei almost couldn't help but want to smash the cell phone on the spot. Fortunately, she still had some sense left, and she knew that she couldn't make a fool of herself on such an occasion. However, when she raised her head, she saw that everyone was looking at her and that there were cameras taking pictures of her. This made Su Mei pull Fu Zhongyi over, and they fled the scene without thinking. That stumbling back was full of embarrassment. However, this was the only way he could save his last shred of face by not saying anything. Because there was already a media reporter who couldn't help but say, "Boss Fu, don't go. Tell us, what do you think of your second son pretending to be your eldest son? Boss Su, the Fu family team was established by you. Don't you know anything about your son pretending to be Spade Z?" But looking at the reaction at the scene, it shouldn't be. Su Mei and Fu Zhongyi were no longer in the mood to say anything, and they just wanted to leave as soon as possible. When she rushed out, Su Mei's face was scratched. It hurt so much that she frowned, but she didn't dare to say a word. Mr. Li was the only one left at the reception. He was still scrolling through the messages on his phone. Those small platforms that invested in the He family army actually exceeded the number of visitors of their platforms in an instant. Moreover, it had exclusive rights to broadcast Spade Z's personal interview. The word regret was not enough to describe manager Lee's mood. He thought he would make a fortune. Now, because of Fu Shiming pretending to be Spade Z, not only did he have to withdraw all the publicity he had invested, but he also had to face the danger of the company collapsing. Boss Lee's face turned pale as he held his phone in a daze. The scene of He Honghua begging him appeared in his mind. Manager Lee, I know that businessmen value profits. We've known each other for a long time. Please don't withdraw your investment at such a critical moment, okay? I can't break down. If I do, my son will be finished. How did he answer then? Chapter 240. Now, his company's reputation was about to go bankrupt, and He Corporation had become the darling of all the major advertisers. Any businessman would know that. Now, it was hard for He Corporation not to become famous. The new king of esports, Spade Z. Who was the one who gave He Honghua the idea to play such a beautiful trick? Boss Lee clenched the phone in his hand, and his heart felt like it had turned over a bottle of dye. He wished he had never withdrawn his investment. Boss Lou walked past him and said, businessmen value profits, but they also need to know not to be ungrateful. Boss Lee was shocked. Boss Lou didn't say anything else. He looked at the three people who had different endings and walked to a quiet corner. Then he took out his phone, swiped the screen, and returned the call. On the top floor of the Chin group. Chin Mo glanced at his phone that kept vibrating. His eyes met the young man's, and he pressed the call button calmly. Boss Lou didn't waste any time and smiled. Boss Chin, I've done everything you asked for, and the results are pretty good. Those three people wanted to find a hole to hide in. Since the media was here, I didn't have to do much, and they would lose face if they did whatever they wanted. Yeah. Got it. Chin Mo's voice was very calm. He held his phone in his left hand, but he didn't forget to empty his right hand. He walked around the young man, pushed his hairy head, and asked him to sit over there. Almighty Chin was still talking on the phone at this time. How busy was he? Boss Lou was still talking on the other side, and he asked vaguely, Boss Chin, does this Su Mei have any grudges with you? No. Chin Mo reached out to toss his uniform to the side before turning on one of the computers. Boss Lou smiled and said, I think so too. Su Mei wasn't stupid enough to make life difficult for anyone but Boss Chin. But if they didn't have any grudges, why would CEO Chin call him during the game just now and ask him to stay at the party and wait for Su Mei and the others to talk to him? With Boss Chin's intelligence, he should have already guessed that they would have such a reaction. It was so embarrassing to say such a thing in front of so many people, but Boss Chin just had him wait here. He didn't believe that it wasn't intentional. Since there's no conflict, then. President Liu wanted to clarify, afraid that one day he would accidentally fall into the trap. Chin Mo's side profile was handsome, and he retracted his arm from Fu Jiu's side. His deep eyes emitted a cold light. I'm a person who likes to protect my own. Director Liu, do you understand? What does this have to do with protecting his own people? Could it be? President Liu thought about it and could only think of one possibility. President Chin was avenging someone. However, no matter what the reason was, Chairman Chin's move was too ruthless. Others didn't hear what Secretary Liang said, but Secretary Liang did. He was very, very worried. If his intuition was right, this call from the CEO was definitely related to the young man. President Chin, tell me, who did you hurt for young Master Zhou? Chin Mo kept his phone as though no one was around. He fiddled with it and glanced sideways at the youngster sitting not far away. Finally, he was completely by his side. From now on, he should be able to live a little more peacefully, asterisk 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 asterisk, it's very important, and I have to write it here. School hunk doesn't allow authorization. Any reprinting, adaptation, or other infringement is my bottom line, and I will go through legal procedures. Chapter 241. The Supreme Alliance was a godlike existence to the people who played esports. It was a pleasant surprise for everyone to be able to join them and sit at the top of the Qin group to control the game characters. Among the four of them, Shui Yaoyao came from a difficult background. There were some things that she didn't even tell His Highness Zhou. Her family didn't approve of her playing games. Especially for a family like Shui Yaoyao's, they couldn't accept such a new profession, not to mention that she was still a high school student. Playing games would undoubtedly delay her studies. Every time she came out to meet with His Highness Zhou and the others, she would suffer from some rumors. Most of them were from relatives. Whether it was concern or mockery, they all said the same thing. How can she go to university if she's so poor? Let her work as soon as possible to lighten her burden. Letting her run around like this will only make her lose money. Someone even said to her mother, "Why should a girl play games? Hooking up with people online, isn't she afraid of losing her reputation?" Shui Yaoyao's mother had a weak personality, but she loved her child dearly. Yaoyao isn't that kind of person. She will play professionally in the future. Professionally. That person didn't understand esports at all. There are professionals in games. To make money. Wake up, that's something that only happens on TV. What does your Yaoyao have? She doesn't have a face, she doesn't have skills, and she's so fat. Who would play games like this? Her mother always thought that she didn't hear such words. However, every time she leaned against the door with red eyes, Shui Yaoyao would tell herself, she must have a bright future. She must get a good result, and she must advance. Now, she was finally sitting here. Shui Yaoyao held the mouse in her hand and looked at the members of the Supreme Alliance beside her. Her fingers were shaking. Fu Jiu sat next to her. After glancing at her, she took out a bank card from her coat pocket. Then, she put it in front of Shui Yaoyao with a light smile. Shui Yaoyao was stunned by Fu Jiu's action. She looked sideways at the young man's fair and handsome face and opened her mouth. His Highness Zhou, the prize for the first place in the rookie contest. The password is 6 9s. Fu Jiu took a sip of coke and held the can casually. Her thin lips were filled with tenderness. Yaoyao paused and pushed it back. No, I can't take it. This award was given by His Highness Zhou, so it should belong to His Highness Zhou. Yaoyao, what are you thinking? Fu Jiu smiled knowingly. If it weren't for you, a healer and a distraction, I wouldn't have been able to kill them all. At this point, Fu Jiu sat back and said evilly, "What's more, do you think I lack money?" This. Shui Yaoyao thought about Highness Zhou's behavior in school. Every now and then, he would buy something to show off his wealth. He was indeed a nouveau riche, or do you think that Manager Feng's brother is short of money? When Fu Jiu asked this, she glanced at Feng Shang, who was still chattering in front of Feng Yi. Yaoyao shook her head. The entire Jiang city knew that the Feng family was rich. Chapter 242. This is just the beginning, and the bonus isn't much. When we stand on the national stage in the future, every professional player will get a corresponding bonus from the league, so take it. Fu Jiu chuckled and looked at Shui Yaoyao with a look that said, "Look, this money can only be used to its full potential by you. Rich people like us don't need any bonus at all." Shui Yaoyao understood that Highness Zhou was looking for a suitable way to make her accept the money. She lowered her head and put the card away. Her voice was a little low. What are you thanking me for? It's what I should do. Feng Shang also came over at this time and smiled with his eyes squinted. Our team only has one girl, so she'll be the team pet from now on. Everyone has to give in to her. The rest of the members of the Supreme Alliance completely agreed with his words. Especially the commentator Lin Feng, who was Yunhu's partner today. He grabbed Shui Yao Yao's arm. Girl, Yao Yao. Your arrival finally proves that the Supreme Alliance isn't a gathering place for monks. We also have a girl, and we are straight men with a normal sexual orientation. Those rotten rumors in the outside world will definitely fall apart. My chances of getting a girlfriend in the future won't be as bad as it is now. As he said this, Lin Feng took out a small mirror and looked at himself. You're so handsome, I'd be letting myself down if I didn't get a girlfriend. My spring is finally coming. Yunhu sneered, raised his hand, and pressed the mirror down. He only said 2 words to him, wake up. Lin Feng was furious. He grabbed him and ravaged him, but it was like scratching an itch on Yunhu's body. Shui Yao Yao really thought that they were a good match. Why would he need a girlfriend? But she wouldn't say this out loud. Fujiu raised her hand and put it on the back of Shui Yao Yao's chair. Let me make this clear, senior brothers, don't do anything to Yao Yao. The team members heard this and started jeering. Hey, what do you mean? Are you declaring your sovereignty? I brought her here, so of course I have to protect her. When Fujiu said this, she was still smiling seductively. She didn't notice that Qin Mo, who was standing behind her, was looking at her. That pair of deep, pure black eyes gradually became cold after hearing this conversation. Even the way he held the phone was different from before. His fingers paused, and his raised eyebrows were filled with coldness. Secretary Liang stood at the side and shuddered for no reason. When he wanted to see his CEO's expression clearly, Qin Mo had already walked over. His voice was calm. What do you guys want to eat for the first gathering tonight? Tell Secretary Liang and ask him to book a place. Whenever Supreme Alliance had a new member, they would have a feast to celebrate. This was a tradition that happened every year. I want to eat hot pot. Hot pot again. Can't you be more creative? As long as there's meat, I'm not picky. Do you want a barbecue? No matter how many I roast, I won't be able to feed you. You are just a pig. Are you stupid? It's not like we're at the beach. There are waiters roasting for us. Oh right, I forgot. Let's eat barbecued meat. Barbecued meat with beer, we must have a dozen. With that, Lin Feng turned to ask Fujiu, Little Spade, can you drink? Of course. Fujiu licked her thin lips. You can have a dozen Budweiser. What did I see? Yunhu. Lin Feng. An. Almighty Qin. What's going on with Supreme Alliance? Almost all of them came online. Everyone online. This has never happened before, okay? It's really everyone online, and my big spade. The prefix of big spade has changed. It had indeed changed. Not only was there a golden stream of light, but there was also a battle suit. Let's go. Qin Mo pulled the earpiece over with one hand and said only one word into the earpiece. The 11 game characters, each holding their own weapons, stood there as if the god of war had arrived. When she was a hacker in the past, there was only one offline person who helped her with the follow-up work and fake her identity. No one else had ever contacted her. He didn't expect that one day, he would be able to fulfill a dream with so many people. Persevering in his beliefs made him so happy. Chapter 245. The impact of Supreme Alliance going online was huge. The most outstanding one was Yin Weio's internet cafe. It was really popular. He remembered that during the live broadcast of the selection contest, many players were watching the game in front of their computers. The moment Yin Weiao appeared, those who knew the owner of the internet cafe spat out the coke in their mouths. They were so excited that they dragged their friends to the internet cafe to surf the net. Some of the frequent customers of the internet cafe didn't expect that the boss they often joked about was actually Yin Weiao, their former idol. As a result, a group of people who liked to play games in internet cafes crazily rushed in. He asked the cashier, "Where's Uncle Yin?" "Ah." The cashier was just a university student, the kind that loved to study and had no interest in playing games. Moreover, he was a part-time worker and only liked to read novels, not online games. He didn't know what was going on, so he replied blankly, "The boss isn't back yet." "Why are you looking for the boss?" "Repair the machine." "I can do it too." "Xiao Mao machine, they want autographs." "Oh." Why didn't they recognize him in the past? That was because of the slight adjustments made during the game. Why didn't they recognize that Uncle Yin was from their Peking university? The feeling of regret and excitement was exactly what they were feeling right now. Feng Yi kept looking at the time on his wrist. Every member of the team couldn't be online for more than 10 minutes. If they continued playing, there would definitely be protests from other teams. Moreover, the National League was coming up. It was better to leave this grand occasion for the first match. Of course, Qin Mo disliked noise even more than Feng Yi. After about 5 minutes, he gestured to the team members beside him. "All of you went offline." Unbeknownst to everyone, Supreme Alliance's battle was like an invisible tornado, shocking when it came and disappearing without warning. "This feels great." This sentence was said by Lin Feng. Feng Shang nodded in agreement. His face was flushed. Secretary Liang, who had booked the place, walked over. He smiled at these young team members and said, "Everything is ready. We can go now." "Yay! Barbecue, I love barbecue the most." Lin Feng hooked Yunhu's neck over as he spoke. Yunhu looked as though he was helpless against him. He didn't even bother to acknowledge him, allowing the octopus to cling onto him. After playing for so long, Fu Jiu was hungry, not to mention barbecue, which was her favorite. She put one hand in her pocket and pulled Shui Yao Yao up with a faint smile on her face. Qi Nemo moved his fingers, removing the earphones on his short black hair. When he turned his head, this was the scene he saw. He smiled at first, but his eyes were cold. Then, he rubbed his thin lips with his fingertip. His voice was gentle, magnetic, and pleasing to the ears. Chapter 246. Fu Jiu. Why did that sentence sound so familiar? Shui Yao Yao also paused, silently recalling the conversation with Highness Jiu and herself. Strangely enough, she found out the reason why Almighty Qin wanted Highness Jiu to pay the bill. Then, she looked down at her own hand that was being held by Highness Jiu. She didn't know why, but she felt a chill down her spine. Fortunately, Shui Yao Yao was more attentive as a bystander. She quickly started to save herself and let go of her hand. Qi Nemo didn't say much. He reached out with one hand in his trouser pocket and the other dragging the youngster by the back of his collar out of the top floor. Perhaps it was because both of them were too outstanding, but the scene was still very handsome. They were surrounded by male teammates, so they couldn't feel it. As a Fujoshi, Shui Yao Yao's blood was boiling. Although the way Highness Jiu and Almighty Qin got along with each other wasn't intimate, there was a vague sense of oppression and counter-oppression. But because of this, it made people feel that they were different. The players at the side were still discussing. "Lin Feng, come, baby Feng, tell me secretly how your captain offended our captain." Feng Shang recalled how his idol had mentioned sleeping with Almighty Qin in the game. He felt that he couldn't say it, so he shook his head decisively. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows. Even if you don't say it, you've already offended him. Otherwise, Captain wouldn't have let him treat you to a meal. Actually, I kind of know that. Yun Hu, who didn't like to gossip, interrupted. This piqued the interest of the Supreme Alliance members. Why? Big Spade, also known as Fujiu, is gay. He openly confessed to Captain in the school cafeteria. Yun Hu was especially serious when he said this, his handsome face solemn and serious. The girls watching the competition also received reliable news that even Fujiu had participated in the newcomer competition to woo their captain. Lin Feng, Feng Yi, Yin Wuyao, everyone, the top floor of the Qin group had never been so quiet. At that moment, he could really hear the sound of the chassis running. Shui Yao saw with her own eyes that Secretary Liang, who hadn't left yet, froze in place. He looked like he was about to cry. Of course, Secretary Liang wanted to cry. The secret he had kept for the president for so long had been exposed. Lin Feng was the first to snap out of his daze. He pondered over this matter and finally came to a conclusion. He reached out and patted Feng Shang's shoulder. Today, I finally understand why Captain treats Big Spade so specially. He wants to keep him by his side and slowly torture him. Do you know what Captain hates the most? No, I don't know. Student Feng is still sad. He refuses to admit that his idol entered the selection contest to chase after Almighty Qin. He completely refuses. Lin Feng answered for him generously, Captain Qin hates gay men the most, especially gay men who have confessed to him. Half a year ago, there was a, what's his name again? Anyway, he's a very popular internet celebrity. He's not bad looking. He wanted to turn Captain Qin gay, but Captain Qin chased him out of 3 provinces. So for the sake of our Supreme Alliance's future, please persuade Big Spade to give up on this idea. He looked at Fujiu, who was 4 people away from him, and the bottom of his eyes became even colder. With that, Yun Hu sat beside Qin Mo. When he sat down, the Supreme Alliance general stilled. Was there something wrong with his senses today? Why was his captain so cold? Chapter 248. Fujiu turned her fair and handsome face sideways, her silver hair falling behind her ears. She was still looking at the dishes on the menu with her fingertips, completely unaware that something was wrong. She asked Shui Yao softly, what do you want to eat? Are there any foods you don't like? Nope. Shui Yao immediately shook her head. This time, Qin Mo laughed. Through the layers of lights in the restaurant, his eyes watched this scene. He tilted his head and lit a cigarette. When the smoke lingered, the coldness intensified. In fact, the 2 of them were too far away from Qin Mo to be able to sense his aura. Fujiu ordered a lot of things. She said to the waiter who was keeping accounts, do you have Budweiser for beer? Yes. Give me 30 bottles first. I want the big ones. If it's not enough, I'll ask you to add more. Then, give me some ice. All right. It was normal for a dozen people to drink 30 bottles of beer, but no one would order ice when ordering beer. Therefore, the waiter couldn't help but take another look at the young man. Fujiu turned around and raised her eyebrows. What? No ice? Yes. The waiter's heart skipped a beat and her face immediately turned red. She quickly wrote down the order and walked away shyly. This was not the main point. The main point was that the waiter was a man. The guy was even shy. The members of the Supreme Alliance looked at each other and immediately gave Fujiu a thumbs up. Little Spade, you're really something. Fu Jiao had an epiphany and curled her lips into a smile. I can't help it. Lin Feng could not hold it in any longer. He turned around and asked Yin Weiyao, Peking University, how did you get tricked into joining the team by this brat? How can you tolerate him like this? Yin Weiyao raised his head silently, refusing to comment. Am I not handsome? Fu Jiao was asking Shui Yaoyao this question, and she didn't forget to show her seductive smile. Even though she knew it was a woman, Shui Yaoyao still felt like she had been electrocuted. She blushed and nodded. Look. Fu Jiao tore open the chopsticks and put them in her mouth. She looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng turned his head and grabbed Yunhu's hand. I want to beat him up, what should I do? Give me a reason why you want to beat him up. Yunhu's voice was as deep and steady as he was. Lin Feng was very serious. He's more handsome than me. As long as it's a man here, which of them isn't more handsome than you? Yunhu caressed his head. Give up on that idea, you can't beat me up. Fu Jiao, who was listening on the side, couldn't help but smile at Shui Yaoyao, as if they had some kind of tacit understanding. This made Qin Mo, who was sitting in the middle, smile even wider. Then, he raised his hand and extinguished the cigarette in his hand in the ashtray beside him. Yunhu felt his hands turning cold, but he couldn't find a reason. Lin Feng had always been someone who knew how to warm up the crowd. Chapter 249. His hand was injured, but he could still use a killer move like 3000 knife cutting. If he wasn't injured, how good would he be? Sure enough. You can't look at the Almighty like a normal person. She was able to play the game well because of her natural hand speed and the fact that she had played the game before. But even so, she was still a distance away from the Almighty. If there was a chance, she could find a time to have a 1v1. Fu Jiao thought of this, and something flashed in her mind. For example, the criminal psychology books that the Almighty left at home. She couldn't help but ask, why is Brother Mo's hand injured? This question made Lin Feng pause for a moment, because even he didn't know why his captain's hand was injured. I accidentally touched it. Qin Mo held his wine glass, and his voice sounded casual. With one hand in his pocket, it was easy for people to believe his words. But Fu Jiao wasn't just anyone. After spending some time with him, she knew that the Almighty wasn't a careless person. As a captain of a professional team, the most important thing was one's hands. The Almighty wouldn't let himself get injured, unless it was unavoidable. Fu Jiao thought of this, raised her head, and her eyes met Qin Mo's. It seemed like the Almighty had more secrets than she did. Alright, that's not important. The most important thing is that we are together now, and we will be together in the future. Lin Feng shouted, drink this glass, and we will still be teammates in the next life. Of course, the team members would respond. Everyone had a smile on their faces as they raised their glasses and toasted each other. All the team members were taking care of Shui Yaoyao, asking her to drink less. Shui Yaoyao looked at this scene, and her heart was filled with warmth. Because of her figure and background, she wasn't popular in front of her classmates, especially in front of the guys. She had heard a lot of ugly and disgusting words, including the way that guy frowned when he found out that she had a crush on him. She had never been pampered like a princess. She had a single parent, and she had 2 younger brothers. She had done things that many people her age didn't do. She had tasted things that many people her age didn't. So, she learned to grow. Someone said, there are 3 stages of growth in a person's life. The first is when you realize that some things in this world won't go your way. The second is when you will be ridiculed and questioned no matter how hard you try. The third is when you know that you won't succeed, but you will still move forward bravely. She was glad that she had the courage of the third kind. Shui Yao Yao tilted her head and looked at the silver-haired young man who was picking meat for her. If she had not met this person, would she have been like many people who had been drowned in reality, without dreams and a life of mediocrity? She would have had no dreams and would have lived a mediocre life. She would have been ridiculed by others. Shui Yao Yao couldn't help but tilt her head and clink glasses with Fu Jiu. Fu Jiu didn't know what she was thinking. She chuckled and patted her head with her free hand. Girls shouldn't drink so much. Yao Yao really wanted to say, "You're a girl too." Chapter 250. Team Flower. Fu Jiu looked at Lin Feng's beautiful face and gave a very pertinent comment. "She really suits you. You're prettier than the whole team combined." Lin Feng's tongue had already started to stiffen. "Have you ever thought about how we feel about the only girl in our family? I think Yao Yao must be very happy to give you the title of Team Flower." Fu Jiu was still smiling, looking very youthful. Shui Yao Yao didn't say anything because His Highness Jiu was the best looking. If he changed back to women's clothing, he would definitely be very stunning. At this moment, she was a little worried. If he became a member of the Supreme Alliance in the future, how long could he hide the fact that His Highness Jiu was a girl? Fu Jiu saw her looking at him, so he turned his head and raised his eyebrows. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Shui Yao Yao just started to speak. Almighty Qin, who was sitting at the far end, was playing with the phone in his hand and walking towards them. Shui Yao Yao felt that this scene was familiar. But before she could remind His Highness Jiu, Almighty Qin leaned over and put one hand on the back of her chair. He smiled faintly and said in a deep and magnetic voice, "Yao Yao, change seats." Shui Yao Yao paused. Her fingers were a little nervous. However, she was still very sensible. Besides, as a shipper fan of His Highness Jiu and Almighty Qin, she especially liked to see the two of them together. Hence, she gave up her seat without saying anything. Lin Feng was a little confused. Did he drink too much? Why did the captain take the initiative to go over there and sit with little Spade? Who would have thought that? Qin Mo didn't just sit down, he also pulled the young man very close to him and lowered his voice. "What did I tell you?" "Ha!" Fu Jiu blinked and smiled. "Yao Yao is a girl, it doesn't count. It's the same for men and women." Qin Mo's voice was very calm. "In the team, the members are not allowed to date. If there is a problem, it will affect the performance of the game, so control your claws." Fu Jiu smiled. "Brother Mo, you can't do this. What if Yao Yao and I really fall in love in the future? Then I'll break your legs." When Qin Mo said this, his smile was very beautiful. It was enough to make any woman, except for Fu Jiu, fall for him instantly. Other people couldn't hear what they were saying, but looking at their posture, it was enough to make people's jaws drop. Lin Feng rubbed his eyes hard. He felt that he had drunk too much and was hallucinating. What is Captain doing?" The rest of the team members had complicated expressions on their faces. They felt that they couldn't see through their captain. Yes, they couldn't see through him at all. Fu Jiu, on the other hand, was already used to it. "Brother Mo, we just became teammates, and we will be participating in the National League together in the future. Don't make it so bloody. Breaking your leg won't affect your hand speed. You can still fight." With that, Qin Mo reached out and pulled the youngster up. He said to the team members, "I'll send him back. You guys can continue drinking, but don't forget to gather at the top floor of the company tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Everyone will fly to Tokyo for impromptu training. If you're 1 minute late, you'll have to do 10 push-ups." He knew that he couldn't let his guard down when dealing with the Almighty. Experts in criminal psychology could easily analyze a person's behavior. After Fujio paid, she asked the cashier of the convenience store to pour hot water for her. The cashier was so excited that his hands were trembling. People who didn't know better would think that he was poisoning her. Finally, Fujio knew why his fingers were trembling. You're Spade Z, right? I've watched today's match live. Can you let Almighty Chin sign his name here? I'm a Chin fan. Everything was normal here. But the cashier's last sentence was, you and Almighty Chin are really compatible. Chapter 252. That cashier was obviously more excited because of his idol's approach, but he didn't dare to repeat what he had just said. After all, everyone knew that Almighty Chin didn't like to pair up with other people. Chin Mo wasn't that easy to fool. He knocked on the table with his fingers and laughed in a low voice. He said, I heard everything just now, but I don't know the details. What are you afraid of? It's not a big deal. That cashier obviously didn't understand Almighty Chin's two-faced ways. But Fujio, who had suffered a lot, knew. She put down the instant noodles and wanted to give the cashier a secret signal. But Chin Mo didn't give Fujio the chance. He reached out his hand and pulled the young man behind him. He said to the cashier in a domineering and pampering way, go on. The cashier looked at his idol's action and analyzed it. Based on his understanding of his idol over the years, if Almighty Chin didn't like someone, he wouldn't touch that person's hand. But now, not only did his idol touch it, but he was also flirting with it. So, the cashier let go of his worries and became excited. He took out his phone and flipped 2 pages for Chin Mo. This is a picture of Spade Z walking towards Almighty Chin when he won today. Everyone said that Almighty Chin and Spade Z are a good match. A good match. A good match. Chin Mo frowned, turned his handsome face, and looked at the picture on the phone screen with his deep eyes. The silver-haired young man raised his head and put his hand on Chin Mo's hand. His thin lips were still curled up, and he looked quite likable when he was smiling. He was handsome and gentle, not particularly rebellious. It was not easy for someone in puberty to be like this. Chin Mo took another look at the photo and didn't say anything. Instead, he glanced at Fujio and said in a casual tone, when did you start eating instant noodles? Fujio raised her eyebrows and laughed. Actually, I've always liked it. It's just that I used to pretend that I liked to eat big meals in front of outsiders. Instant noodles are too strong. Brother Mo, you won't mind, right? Her words were 30% false and 70% true. She had played cops and robbers for so many years, so she knew criminal psychologists very well. She knew the underlying problem behind every question. It wasn't that easy for the Almighty to blow her up. I won't. Chin Mo also knew that he couldn't trust this kind of answer, so he ordered a cup of coffee and returned to his original seat with the youngster. This series of actions made the cashier extremely excited. This was the first time that Almighty Chin had been paired with someone. Almighty Chin didn't refuse, although he frowned just now. But he didn't reject it. Did this mean that Almighty Chin didn't object to becoming a couple with Big Spade? Thinking of this, the cashier's eyes were filled with pink bubbles. Not to mention, when she looked at the 2 figures sitting together, she felt that there was a chance. The light rain outside the window had turned into a thin layer of snow, which was beautifully illuminated by the streetlights. This was rare in Rivertown. After all, smog was a common thing in the north. But after the snow, the weather became better. In the wee hours of the night, Fujio used to enjoy sitting in a 24-hour convenience store and looking out the window with her head propped up. Because the convenience store had a good view, she was able to observe everyone and then come up with a plan to attack so that she could retreat in time. Chapter 253. Qin Mo's low and cold voice rang in her ears. Fu Jiu looked up with a smile. Why do you think so, Brother Mo? This is the best view of the entire street. At the crossroads, the building is directly opposite, and the other two sides are very empty. There are no buildings blocking the way. Sitting here, you can have a panoramic view of the movements in all three directions. Generally, high IQ criminals like to blend in with the crowd like you and observe the surroundings as if nothing is happening. This is so that they can avoid being questioned by the police and not be noticed by anyone after they are done with their business. Qin Mo's expression was indifferent, making it hard to tell if he was serious or if he just wanted to chat about this topic. Fu Jiu looked at the steam coming from the instant noodles and put the plastic fork in her mouth. She smiled like an innocent teenager. Brother Mo, you've watched too many movies. How could criminals in real life be so smart? If they were, the rate of solving cases wouldn't be so low. After all, I can't even find my lost phone. Fu Jiu smiled and said, Brother Mo, you've watched too many movies. Any story that is presented in the form of art comes from real life. Qin Mo looked at Fu Jiu with his deep eyes. So be good next to me and don't let me get hold of any evidence, understand? Fu Jiu felt that the Almighty's good this time was completely different from before. It sounded like he was warning her. To be honest, she couldn't help but suspect that the Almighty let her enter the Supreme Alliance for the national competition and to keep an eye on her. In this case, it was indeed not easy to play dirty tricks. Fu Jiu was a little depressed. Why did she have to be wary of some people even if she was reborn 100 times? If she was unhappy, she would eat some instant noodles to calm herself down. Qin Mo didn't want Fu Jiu to think that he was too controlling as a brother. Even if he was in a good mood when he saw the young man's curled lips, he couldn't go too far. It's not convenient to contact you since you lost your phone. Fly to Tokyo tomorrow, and I'll ask Secretary Liang to choose one for you. Fu Jiu swallowed the noodles in her mouth. I'm just giving an example. I don't lack phones. Where did the Almighty learn to buy something for her whenever he disagreed with her? He must have looked up some strategy again. As if reading the young man's mind, Qin Mo suddenly laughed. Why? Aren't all the overbearing CEOs like this in the books you read? Yang is very handsome. Fu Jiu was caught off guard. Fu Jiu almost choked on her cold joke. She couldn't let the Almighty read such nonsense again. It was too toxic to learn and apply. But there was no one else other than the Almighty who could tell cold jokes in such a dignified manner. Fu Jiu tilted her head, and only then did she realize that the man had given her his coat. Chapter 254. As a single dog cashier, he could only watch Almighty Qin turn his head and bite the noodles Big Spade fed him with his light-colored thin lips. His elegant and handsome side profile was revealed. At that moment, snow was falling from the window, and even the street lights seemed to become soft and beautiful. Both of them were extremely handsome, not only Almighty Qin, but also Spade Z, which made the picture look especially good. This was definitely a good match. A good match that couldn't run away. The cashier seemed to be telling everyone what he was feeling right now. So he raised his hand and secretly took a picture of the two of them without disturbing them. He posted it in the CP fans discussion post and added a comment. Almighty Qin and Big Spade came to our convenience store together, and they are eating instant noodles now. So this is the right way to eat instant noodles. It's so cute, and I can't help but share it with everyone. After posting it, the cashier said in his heart that he hoped Almighty Qin and the others wouldn't blame him. This scene was too exciting. As soon as the picture was posted, the whole page exploded. Hey! Noodles. Almighty Qin. Big Spade. No, I want to see it again. Almighty Chin has never eaten anything given to him by anyone. Last time when Coco gave him potato chips, he rejected them. So Almighty Chin absolutely loves my big spade. I just want to say that when I see the picture, my wolf blood is boiling. I hope the officials can release the merchandise soon. I want to buy a small album of Big Spade and Almighty Chin getting along. I don't care how much it costs. This is simply fulfilling the CP fans' dream. Don't tell me that Almighty Chin and Big Spade get along like this in private. I just want to say, single dogs are so cute, please don't mistreat them. I'm going to drink up this bowl of dog food. Is it a guy or a girl who posted this post? Please post more pictures. I think we shouldn't go too far. Almighty Chin might not want to be a CP with Big Spade. It's never bad to keep a low profile. That's right. Then let's just enjoy the CP post in silence and not post it. Otherwise, it won't be good if we get into trouble. These are the thoughts of true love fans. But there are so many people in the world, and we can never predict what the negative side of a matter will be. At this moment, someone who used to like Spade Z narrowed his eyes as he looked at the photo of the couple. She felt like she had been slapped in the face for mistaking Spade Z. Therefore, she felt that Spade Z's method of proving himself on the spot was too pretentious. He had to use this method to embarrass them. Had he ever considered the feelings of his true fans? Thus, he decisively turned from a fan to a hater. At the bottom of the post, he wrote, "You know that Almighty Chin doesn't want to see this kind of post, but you still posted it?" Was he delusional? I was puzzled. Why did Spade Z cause so much trouble as soon as he appeared? Did he go crazy from wanting to be famous? Did he tie himself to Almighty Chin to create hype? Have you asked Almighty Chin how he feels? And when she left this message, she didn't think that she was wrong. For her, this was the truth. The others were just too stupid to think that Spade Z was good in everything. Even the cashier who posted the photo explained to her, Almighty Chin saw this post, and he didn't feel any disgust at the time. Chapter 255. There was a rule on the official esports website. Fans could fantasize about who their idols were, but the official esports website was not the place to talk about this. The hottest topic of discussion here was the upcoming National League. Every team was focused on dealing with the situation. Even many of the commentators were focusing on each team's players and giving comments on them one by one. Such a meaningful analysis post was suddenly overshadowed by a CP post. Of course, it would cause dissatisfaction among people who only liked this game. Moreover, the CP post was still trending. Finally, someone couldn't help but speak up. Those who like Spade Z, please don't post here all the time, okay? Especially this kind of CP post. This is the official website of the national team, and there are other fans here. Can't you have some manners? The picture is good, but as a Chin fan, I just want to say that this kind of hype is a bit too much. I hope Spade Z's fans can stop. I won't comment on this matter now, because according to my understanding of Almighty Chin, he won't allow anyone to feed him noodles if he doesn't want to. But posting here is a mistake. Big Spade. Who is it? I've never heard of him. The FC King of Zone C, his skills are really good, but now it seems that his character, that Black used to like Spade Z very simply. She even bought a ticket to the selection contest just to watch Spade Z's game. She didn't expect to be treated like that. Since Spade Z didn't give her face, she had to expose this matter so that people could see what kind of person Spade Z was. The post was posted in the wee hours of the morning. It had to be said that this posting time was very advantageous. The official management wasn't here, and they must be sleeping after work at this late hour. Although the company had technicians on duty, managing the direction of the post was not within the scope of their work. The Supreme Alliance was still celebrating, and no one realized that a premeditated bloody storm was coming quietly. The next day, before the sun rose, Feng Yi received a phone call. Fortunately, he had woken up early that day. The members of the team were going to Tokyo for training, so he naturally had to tag along. Moreover, Feng Shang was going as well, so he was very awake when he picked up his phone. However, when he heard the contents of the call, his brows furrowed deeply. When was the post posted? 2:00 in the morning. Mr. Feng, should we communicate with the official website and apologize first? This post is really bad, especially since Spade Z is still a newcomer. It's not good for him to be so high profile. Mr. Feng, when you have time, let him manage his fans. It will be hard for us to deal with this situation. He was like a devil from hell, his entire being filled with bloodlust. Let me handle this. Feng Yi paused. Boss Qin is here. Under normal circumstances, this kind of thing would be handled by the agent. He sent it to CEO Qin so that CEO Qin could find it. After all, he wasn't sure if young Master Qin was willing to be a couple like this. But now... Chapter 257. As an older brother. If he couldn't even provide the most basic protection, then he would be done for as an older brother. During the esports selection contest, he didn't do anything because the youngster wanted to solve the current problem by himself. But it was different this time. Beyond the technical level, he had to tell them who was protecting Fuzhou. The youngster was indeed cunning, and he hid his thoughts deeply. Up until now, he wasn't completely transparent in front of him. But he actually treated him as a younger brother. The youngster didn't do anything out of line. Yesterday, he just fed him noodles, but he was slandered to this extent. Then he would tell them whether he was willing to be a CP or not. Qin Mo held his phone in his right hand and turned on the computer next to him with his left hand. A cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Yes. After Feng Yi recovered from the shock, he immediately took action. There was no need to think. Young Master Qin even said such words. It could be seen that young Master Qin did acquiesce to the CP issue. Although young Master Qin acquiesced to the CP issue, Feng Yi felt like the sky was raining red. It wasn't easy to see such a scene in his lifetime. After all, young Master Qin said that if he wanted him to play professional league, he should let him appear less in public. In other words, young Master Qin himself wasn't someone who liked being reported by the media. But according to young Master Qin, he was going to mobilize all of his background forces. Spade Z's charm was indeed great. Young Master Qin never used his family background to oppress people easily. When young Master Qin first came out, he was also slandered badly. After all, with young Master Qin's character, he didn't want to communicate with his fans, so people could use it against him. Since there were fans of all ages, their thoughts must be different, so it was hard to control some things. At that time, young Master Qin was still as cold as he was now. When he saw someone slandering him, he didn't care about them and refreshed his ranking. He defeated countless professional players, and until now, he had become an existence that no one could easily shake in the esports scene. Did you just say that there was no more slandering? That was impossible. In the online world, as long as you became a public figure, there would be people who liked you and people who hated you. Even now, there would be people who looked down on young Master Qin's style. But what surprised him was young Master Qin's way of doing things. After all, he had always been indifferent to this kind of thing. He didn't expect that he would solve it so directly. It seemed like this incident had crossed young Master Qin's bottom line. But even Feng Yi didn't know why young Master Qin wanted him to register for Spade Z's official Weibo. Through special means, the official Weibo authentication was usually fast. Moreover, Spade Z was originally part of the Supreme Alliance, so it was even faster to get the authentication from the team. In less than half an hour, Feng Yi settled the matter and handed over the account and password to Qin Mo. However, young Master Qin didn't log into the account. Instead, he said calmly, "Give the official Weibo to Z. What is my official Weibo account and password?" Feng Yi, although it was not the time to complain about this, but... Almighty, why did you ask me for the password for your official Weibo account? He had no choice. He knew that young Master Qin hadn't been on Weibo for a year, so he might have forgotten about it. As his manager, he could only send it to the Almighty again. Chapter 258. Once he logged into the official Weibo account, there were basically 10,000 private messages, forwards, and Qin Mo didn't look at these things. Instead, he opened the post and found the picture of the two of them eating noodles together. Then he edited the text and posted the latest news. The noodles are not bad, mainly because the person who fed them is very pleasing to the eye. When Qin Mo posted this, he didn't forget to mention that Spade Z, official Weibo that Feng Yi had just registered for Fuzhou. There weren't many words, but it completely showed his stance. Not only did it show his stance, but it also showed that he didn't reject the speculation of this CP. Instead, he was very willing to be copied. He didn't use any tone, and even his words revealed his unique aloofness. But it was just this one message. It directly blasted all the Supreme Alliance members awake. What the F***CK, what's going on? Captain, no wonder you called Little Spade out alone yesterday. So you wanted Little Spade to treat you to instant noodles. Lin Feng was the first to forward the post. His repost further proved that the reason why the two of them were alone yesterday was because of the captain's initiative. It wasn't like the rumor that Spade Z was trying to create hype. Sorry, our Supreme Alliance is the most tightly knit. Don't even think about taking advantage of the loopholes. After Lin Feng posted, Yunhu immediately followed up. Captain is going crazy because someone important was hurt. Coco and Fatty, who were preparing to register at the southern airport, were next. Although they didn't know what was going on, they had no idea what was happening. Although they didn't know what exactly happened, they had 100% trust in their captain, Boss Qin. Everyone in the Supreme Alliance was reposting Qin Mo's Weibo. Once again, people witnessed the strong and unbreakable cohesion of this young team. In fact, as soon as Qin Mo posted, Weibo exploded. What the F***CK, I also wanted to ask Lin Feng what happened. Almighty Qin actually posted on Weibo. And it was such a warm post. I was so excited that I wanted to run 2 laps. Almighty Qin's side profile is so handsome. I'm drunk again. I didn't expect to see Almighty Qin post on Weibo in my lifetime. As a Qin fan, I can die in peace. But what did Almighty Qin mean by this? Those who only cared about the competition were confused. I know. Please share the drama. Didn't someone on the official side make a CP post? The people who replied scolded Spade Z badly, saying that he was forcing Almighty Qin to copy the CP. They even said that he was sticking to Almighty Qin, but now it seems like that's not the case. Almighty Qin's words, no matter how I look at it, it seems to be saying that my people are not to be touched. Is this what it means? The CP fans also thought that Almighty Qin meant the same thing. In this game, it was fortunate that reason prevailed. As a result, a huge wave of support appeared on Weibo. Everyone, regardless of gender, would add a Z logo when they reposted Qin Mo's post. It was this effective and sensational support that sped up Feng Yi's follow-up work. Originally, he was worried that young Master Qin's Weibo post would cause Little Spade's fans to lose their cool and start a war of words. Chapter 260. The support measures on Weibo were obviously the work of a veteran. So Feng Yi didn't have to worry about public relations. Because no matter how useful public relations was, it couldn't compare to a true fan. The premise was that this true fan had to be rational enough. After this storm, Feng Yi felt that Little Spade would be very popular in the future. Because there were thousands of true fans. But there weren't many true fans who could see the situation clearly and put themselves in their idol's shoes. Just like how it wasn't easy for young Master Qin to have a true fan like him. That's right. Our manager Feng was a fan-turned-manager. When so many people said that Qin Mo only knew how to show off, he believed that the youngster had the capital to be cold. There were too many tricks in esports nowadays. Some people didn't mind buying rotten eggs or lowering their heads to their fans in order to attract fans. But too many people forgot that as long as you could play the game well and didn't do anything that challenged the bottom line of morality, this spirit should be the most important. He still remembered that when he first took young Master Qin in, young Master Qin told him, "I'm in charge of playing the game well, you're in charge of making the team more famous and then breaking into the national finals." For a club that focused on esports, both aspects were indispensable. But what about fans? Don't we need fans? At that time, he even advised young Master Qin, "Believe me, sometimes we don't need to do anything to protect fans." But at that time, young Master Qin only replied, "Everyone who likes esports knows what they like. I'm an esports player, how to play the game well is what I should do. Although protecting fans can indeed make me popular faster, that's not what I want. In this world, there are things that are earned through hard work. Because of this sentence, he stayed in the Qin group until now, even though young Master Qin was injured that year and Supreme Alliance didn't win the championship. He was also willing to do so. Perhaps it was because he was getting old. Once he saw the storm on the internet, he thought of the past. Or perhaps Little Spade was really similar to young Master Qin in some aspects, which made him feel hot-blooded again. After looking at Weibo, Feng Yi didn't have any misgivings and went straight to the person in charge of esports. Of course, he wouldn't ask for the poster's registration information. It was illegal, and he wouldn't let anyone search for the poster. In fact, from his point of view, this was a typical case of a fan turning anti-fan. What he needed to do now was to find a loophole in the post and force her to apologize and delete the post. That was the best way to protect Little Spade. So Feng Yi asked 3 questions under the post. 1. Are you a fan of Little Spade or an anti-fan? A true fan wouldn't have come to the official platform to create such a post for Little Spade. 2. If you are a fan, why didn't you delete the post when someone mentioned that posting here is disrespectful and will make everyone hate Little Spade even more? 3. Maybe you didn't notice, but after you posted the photo, 10 minutes later, you followed the thread on the 73rd floor and speculated whether Little Spade was using Almighty Qin to create hype. This kind of behavior clearly showed that you weren't a fan. Chapter 261. Such a strong statement. It directly shocked all the onlookers. Then something even more shocking came out. It was Qin Mo's second Weibo post. That's right. Almighty Qin, who was over 100 years old, actually posted 2 Weibo posts in one day. If we regard the first rule as protecting one's own shortcomings, then the second rule comes straight to the point. Anyone who slandered Spade Z will be held responsible. Instantly. His official Weibo was blown up. That true fan thought it would take a few days of hard work to completely reverse the current situation. But now young Master Qin said this. He was clearly telling everyone. I'll beat whoever plays with Spade Z. This time, the CP fans couldn't bear it anymore. The whole screen was flooded with comments. I just want to say that I want to see the picture of my big spade feeding Almighty Cheen noodles again. Almighty Cheen, are you sure you aren't giving us CP fans candy? After yesterday, I'll drink this bowl of dog wolf again. It was nothing at first. But unexpectedly, Almighty Cheen replied to one of the comments, yes, candy. He admitted it. Almighty Cheen admitted it himself. Who would dare to go back on his words? No one. No one would say that Spade Z maliciously kidnapped Almighty Cheen to create hype. The post was also dug out. A black-haired CP post. Everyone was confused at first, but now they were awakened by the questions. Plus, Cheen Mo's second Weibo post. Both Spade fans and Cheen fans began to ask the person who posted to apologize and delete the post. When the national competition was coming, as fans, they only hoped that their idol could fight in perfect condition. It wasn't just the fans of these two teams, even the fans of the other teams felt that justice was owed to Spade Z. At this time, the young man who was the topic of the discussion had just finished packing his luggage. There was no other way. There were too many candies and instant noodles, and there was a nagging housekeeper behind her, which directly affected Fujio's efficiency. Young master, I have to go with you. What if you really want to sleep with Almighty Cheen? If I'm here, I can at least stop you. Fujio yawned, and her silver hair curled up. Even if you're here, I can still sleep with Brother Mo if I want to. What's more, it's to Tokyo. Who's paying for the ticket? I'll pay for it. Chen Xiaodong puffed out his chest. I won't spend a single cent. How about it? Fujio picked up her black leather suitcase. It's not much, because I need money for everything. You're a pro player, so you should have this. Chen Xiaodong was about to cry. Moreover, Madam's company has been doing very well these past 2 days, so she doesn't have time to take care of you. She specifically told me to take good care of young master. Fujio chuckled. Stay at home and don't let your imagination run wild. That's the best you can do for me. Young master, you are mocking me. Fujio tidied up her silver hair in front of the mirror and raised her pretty eyebrows. You can still understand what I mean. Not bad. Chen Xiaodong, just as Fujio pushed away the clingy butler and was about to leave for the airport, her phone rang in her pocket. It was Shui Yao Yao. Fujio put one hand in her pocket and curled up her lips. Yao Yao. I'll be there in a moment. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.